Are you still buying gas, groceries, and fast food without getting cash back? Why are you doing that? You could be getting cash back on all of these things. And not like, here's some credits to use at this store again and some points. This is cash. This is money on your phone that you can then deposit straight into your PayPal and then put that into your bank account. Over the last 2 years, I have earned $299.39 on Upside. Now, they have cashback offers at all kinds of places. Circle K, Lion's Choice, local random restaurants, Papa Murphy's, Phillips 66, Huck's, all kinds of places now. You can get cash back just for shopping there. All you have to do is give them the last 4 digits of your card, and then they just make sure that you use those same cards at these places and give you cash back on the app. When you go to get the app, use the invite code Janice3538. That's JANICE 3538 to get an automatic 15 cents back per gallon on your first transaction using the app. This year, I'm using the money that we save up for Christmas. It's May, and I've only used it a couple of times on things other than gas, and I already have almost $60 saved up for Christmas for the kids this year. I'm hoping to have about $200 saved up, which doesn't sound far-fetched, especially because now they're offering it at over 50 different local restaurants and 50 different nationwide companies. So like I said, get the app, Upside. That's UPSIDE, and use the invite code Janice3538 to get 15 cents per gallon back on your first transaction. Upside doesn't share any of your personal information with your referral network, so you don't have to worry about like your friends who you refer to the app knowing everything you do and everywhere you shop. Same with people who you are referred from, so don't worry. No one's going to know all the things that you buy.
You dumb fucking bitch!
Bitch.
Bitch.
You bitch! You nigger bitch!
Heinous bitch is the fucking bitch!
Bitch?
You're a bitch!
The bitch. All right. Welcome back to Hi Bitch, Bye Bitch. You like my new intro? I made it myself. Thanks. It's inspired by another podcast that I listen to called Trust Me. Beginning of their whole podcast, the intro is pretty dope, so kind of stole inspiration from them, which is why I'm going to say that I stole inspiration from Trust Me. But this week's episode is very heavy trigger warning. And if you're in my family, you should probably just not listen to this because you're not going to like hearing this. Not that, like, I personally did anything worth being upset with. It's that this is going to be the story of Florida. And if you know me well, you know that Florida was a very bad part of my life. So, like I said, heavy trigger warnings on this. For everything. For any and everything you could think of, trigger warnings. So, that is how I just want to give everybody an opportunity to back out if they don't want to hear about abuse, sexual abuse, alcoholism, and just general shitty personness. Like, if you don't want to hear about the worst person I've ever dealt with, then you just probably shouldn't listen to this. But personal things, let's see. I got a new microphone. So if the audio sounds completely different, it's because I got a newer, better microphone. And also now I have 2 microphones. So if I want to do interviews, it's not going to be, here's a microphone for me, microphone to you, microphone to me, microphone to you. So that's hopefully going to be a lot better. If anyone ever decides that they actually want to do an interview with me without it being a surprise, haha, you're on my podcast interview. So, of course, we're going to start off, and cheers, everybody. Community hit. I actually just had to go through and, like, take a needle and poke it into mine because it was doing that thing where it wouldn't light, and I was like, bitch, excuse me, this is stupid. So, yeah. We got new pipes this week. That's not too exciting. We get new pipes, like, every 3 weeks or something. And yeah, nothing else. I'm trying to think. Oh, we went to the store yesterday, and we went to the outlet mall out in Chesterfield, and they have this Ryobi toy store. Yes, toy store. It is not anything but a toy store for men or people who like to do home improvement. So Ira got a fucking miter saw for $50. And I am very excited about that because now we can build things. But it was $50, and it was like factory blemished. I guess it means like, the box had a dent in it, so they couldn't send it to Home Depot. So got a fucking miter saw for $50, and that was pretty dope. So now we can do projects and make things together. But anyway, back to the community hit. Cheers. I'm trying not to have coughing fits on here because I feel like that would be really hard to listen to. Somebody just coughing their ass off. So. Alright, and I do have another song to play for everybody this week. I'm going to try to do it every single week. I want to find smaller artists and play songs from them. So let me grab that and I will get that going. So that was as of right now, as of January 29th, unreleased track by Straws. And you can find them on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on TikTok. And I will put links in the notes. This story that I am going to tell you, I am literally going to tell from the first person. It is just going to be easier for me if I tell it in the first person. Yeah. And it's going to be told in story form. It's not going to be told 100% in timeline. So if anybody gets confused and they want to ask me questions, please feel free. But this is going to be a longer episode just because I'm finally going to go into all of the details about it. And it's just going to be a lot. If I end up crying, get over it. We just deal with that. So just get ready. 100 million trigger warnings, like I've said. And yeah. So it's 2009, and I just got to Florida with my grandma. We were on vacation, and I got to my aunt's house, and they lived in Lakeland, which is in the very middle of Florida. If you don't know anything about Florida, it's literally directly between Orlando and Tampa, so you're right in between two of the bigger cities. But the way I tell everybody from Missouri is that it's if you took St. Charles and just put it in the middle of Florida. It's exactly the same kind of people, same kind of poverty, same kind of stores, except for just make it Floridian. So, get to my aunt's house, and then I hear this noise, and it's this loud car outside, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I hadn't been to Florida since 2000, when my cousin was born. I went down there when my cousin was born, and I'm not going to use names. I might use initials, but I don't want to use names just because a lot of these people are still around and I love them and I don't want anyone saying anything about them. So, it's this loud psh noise outside. And I'm trying to figure out what it is, and then all of a sudden my cousin walks through the door, and I'm like so excited because he and I are super close. He was in his 30s and I was 19, but I was like his little sister. So he's like, oh, Janny, there you are. And so he gives me a big old hug, and he's like, come on. And he takes me back to his house in this car. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we go to his house, and I see his wife, and then I see my cousin, and she's like 9, and hanging out with them, and I'm sitting on the front porch. And people in Florida are some front porch sitting motherfuckers. Like, I thought it was like just an old person thing when I was younger, but no, everybody in Florida sits on their porch all the time. Just hangs out. People walk up, you hang out with them, and they leave. People go to the store across the street, and then they come over and hang out for a little bit, and then they leave. And it's just like open door policy all the time because you're always out on your front porch. So I'm sitting on the front porch. I hadn't gone inside. And then out walks this guy. And it's like one of those moments in a movie where like that time stops. And I'm like, oh, who is that guy? Now, mind you, now, in retrospect, this man is not attractive at all. Like, he's not even baseline attractive. I was just 19 and traumatized. So for this to be explained, we have to backtrack a little bit to when I was enrolled in college. So I was enrolled in a private college here in St. Charles area, and I had been going for a couple months, and I hated it. I didn't want to go. My grandma basically forced me to go because she paid for everything that could be paid for out of pocket before I got my student loan. And so I was obligated to go because she paid for it. She bought me all the stuff for my dorm room. She got me all kinds of food, bought me new clothes, got me a computer, all this stuff so I could go to college. And I didn't want to go. But I was an English major, and I went to maybe 4 classes before I was like, this is not for me. And I just stopped going to classes and started partying. And not heavy like everyone would think. It was more so just like hanging out with the girls in my dorm, hanging out with the guys in the dorm next to us, because the dorm that I was in had all of the women's sports teams. So I was bunked with all of the soccer players, the softball players, the shooting team, the girls' tennis. Like, it was dope. I loved it because I had all the jock girls in my dorm, so it wasn't a lot of prissiness. It was just everyone fucking hanging out and smoking and chilling. And so me and my friends are hanging out, and like everyone smoked, but we didn't smoke on campus because it's private college and we knew we would get in trouble, so we didn't even chance it because they had so much security. So we would go off campus or go back to my house because my house was only 15 minutes away from college. So all of my friends would just come to my house because my grandparents weren't there. My grandparents were living in Kentucky at the time, and I was just kind of house sitting while I was in college. Ugh. So we're all hanging out, and one day we're back in our dorm, we're sitting outside, and one of the RAs heard us talking, and in these dorms, they were really old. The campus is from, like, literally the 1800s, and they just started to build new dorm buildings, but we were still in the old ones. So, like, the bathrooms didn't have any storage. There was no cabinets anywhere. It was, like, the old pedestal sinks and the pedestal showers, and it was just really, really just trashed. It was old. They didn't take care of it. They still had, like, the old school metal radiators in all of the dorm rooms. So we were sitting there talking about, like, where we could store things and where we could put things. We were saying, like, oh, we could put the toilet paper under the sink, or we could put it, next to the toilet or whatever. We could stash it under there. One of the RAs heard us and thought we were using code words for drugs. So then they reported us to the dean. So me and 3 of my friends actually got expelled and had to appeal our expulsion, and then we got reinstated. So, like, for me, that was, like, strike 2. Because, like, strike 1 was I didn't even want to be there. Strike 2 was that this RA was accusing us of something that we weren't actually doing. Like, it's funny when you do something wrong, but then someone accuses you of doing it when you're not actually doing it. Like, we weren't even doing anything wrong. We were having a legitimate conversation about where to hide toilet paper in our bathroom because we didn't want just, like, a mountain of toilet paper in the corner. So that happens. And then one day, oh, and mind you, they searched all of our stuff. Like, we had to dump all of our actual shit in the trash can outside the dean's office because they had told us they were going back to search our dorm rooms. So we all took our purses with us and, dumped all of our shit in a trash can. So then a week goes by or so, and then I go to the cafeteria to get food, and, like, mind you, still haven't gone to class. Don't care, just kind of living on campus because I didn't want anything to do with the school part. So I spent a week binge listening to the Twilight soundtrack because this was the same time the Twilight movie was about to come out, like the first one, and I'd always hated Twilight, But then somehow my sister, who is not a big reader at the time, convinced me to read Twilight. And I knew if my sister liked it, it had to be okay because she's not a reader. So read Twilight, obsessed, read all of them, just fucking ate them up. And then was like laying in my bed listening to Decode by Paramore, crying because I didn't want to be in college and I had to. I had no choice. Oh my God. So then I go to the cafeteria one day and it declines and it won't let me get food. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? They're like, well, you need to go to the financial aid office and figure it out. I'm like, okay. So I go to the financial aid office and I'm like, what's going on? Why can't I get food? I'm on the student meal plan. And they're like, well, you don't have a loan. You still owe us like $1,200. And I'm like, no, I don't. Because I have all of the FAFSA paperwork. I like pulled it out, gave it to them. They're like, yeah, we never got this. I was like, what do you mean you never got that? I'm a fully enrolled student here, living on campus, eating your food. How? What? So they basically said that the FAFSA company never sent over, like the loan company never sent over the paperwork for my loan to the school so that I wasn't enrolled anymore. And that was strike 3. I was like, okay, I'm done. Cool. I'm out. Got all my shit. Went back to my grandparents' house. Had a bunch of people over. And these guys came over from the school. And we were all drinking and stuff. And me and this guy started talking a little bit more. And we like go in the bathroom. He was like making out with me. And then things started to progress more, and I keep telling him I don't want to do this, and I'm like physically trying to push this dude off of me. And trigger warning, okay? Just prepare yourself. I don't have a problem talking about this, but people have a big problem listening to it. So just, here we go. So he pushes me onto my bed, which is like a futon mattress on top of another mattress on the floor. And it was really nice. It sounds trashy, but it was actually like perfect for a teenager. So he pushes me onto my bed, and I'm trying to kick him off of me, and he won't get off of me, and he puts both of his hands on my neck, and he's holding my neck as he's raping me. And I'm punching him, trying to get him the fuck off of me, screaming, but nobody can hear me downstairs in the rest of the house because they're all drinking and they have music up loud. And I'm trying to get him off of me, like, can't physically get him off of me because I'm pretty sure he played football. And he's holding me around my neck as I am punching and scratching this dude in the face. And he finishes, but all over me, and then takes my baby blanket. Like, I was just telling my husband, this is the blanket that I was wrapped in after they cleaned me off after I came out of my mom. So he takes my baby blanket and, like, puts it on me and, like, smears his shit all over me and says, deal with that. And then gets up and walks out. And I'm laying there, freaking out. I tell everybody to get the fuck out of my house. And I called my ex-boyfriend because I didn't know what else to do. And so my ex-boyfriend comes over and sits with me while I call the police. The police come over and they do the full workup of my bedroom. They take my baby blanket. They take all my bed sheets. They take my comforter. They take the bottle of liquor we were drinking. They do all of this. Now, mind you, I had already been raped once. Nobody ever knew, though. I had been raped in that room already one time by my very first boyfriend. So the raping part wasn't new, but the police part was new. So I had the cops there, and then my mom comes, and I ride with the police officer to the hospital, and they start doing the rape kit, and they do the full rape kit, which if you've had a rape kit, it is almost more invasive and destructive than the actual rape itself. They have to scrape underneath your fingernails. They take your hair and they comb through your hair into a piece of paper. They swab your entire body. And then it's like getting a pelvic where they stick swabs and cotton and tools and all kinds of shit inside your pussy and get all of the things out of it. And then they like wipe off your entire body with different kinds of cloths to get the different DNA and things like that. And do the full thing. There for like 5 hours. My mom takes me home. And I don't want to go back to my mom's. I, for some reason, want to go back to my grandma's house. And then another couple weeks go by. And my cousin worked for a judge in the courts where the case was actually going to be. Because I filed charges. I was taking this dude to court. So my cousin calls me and she's like, hey, you need to drop the charges. And I'm like, why? And she's like, he got the most expensive lawyer in the county, and they are saying that you wanted it and that it was just too big for you, and that's why you're saying it's rape. So I was defeated, and I went ahead and dropped the charges. And about a month later was when my grandma said, do you want to go to Florida? And I said, yep, let's go to Florida. And we went on a vacation. So jump back to I'm sitting on my cousin's porch, and this guy walks out, and I'm enamored because I'm broken and bleeding at this point emotionally. So this guy who shows me, you know, an ounce of attention starts talking to me, and we're talking about how we have shared interests in literally nothing. I don't know why the fuck I even hung out with this dude. We had nothing in common. I didn't listen to country music, for one. I also didn't listen to Dave Matthews. This motherfucker was obsessed with Dave Matthews. I hate Dave Matthews. And he would listen to it all the time. He would listen to that. He would listen to the most annoying country music. Oh my God. But apparently, this was the thing I wanted. So I start talking to this dude, and we're hanging out. And like I said, I was on vacation with my grandma for like a week and a half. And with her, it was like, oh, we're going to go on vacation for a week. It would turn into a month sometimes, because that's just the type of person my grandma was we would just end up staying somewhere, you know, because she didn't have a job. My grandpa paid for everything, and she could do whatever she wanted. So we're hanging out, me and this guy. We hang out literally every single day. He takes me to restaurants. We go and I get to try alligator for the first time. We go to different bars that he hangs out at, because I was 19 and he was 23. Which, you know, thinking about it, it's not that much of a difference, like, at all. Like, honestly, that was a pretty okay age match, because a 19-year-old girl is totally at the same maturity level as a 23-year-old dude, for the most part. Normal, neurotypical people, okay? I was traumatized, obviously, and still working through that, but not knowing that I needed to work through it. So we're hanging out every day. I have pictures from this time where if anybody wants, I can go back on Facebook and I can find all the pictures of me from this time, and I can like put them on my Instagram story for the podcast. I know a lot of podcasts do that, or I can upload them, whatever. I can just show you guys what I looked like, the kind of vibes that I had at the time, and like some of the stuff we did, because I took pictures of me doing all these things. And it was nice because I got to spend time with my little cousins. My aunt and my uncle were poor. And, like, there's no other way to put it besides poor. My uncle worked at Walmart. And my aunt didn't work at the time because she had really bad problems with her feet. So they were on welfare. They were living in Section 8 housing. They were on food stamps. They had, like, the Obama phone. Every single government assistance program you could be on, my aunt was on it. But I got to spend time with them. I got to see them, and I hadn't seen them in about a decade. So it was really nice to be able to see my cousins and to be able to spend time with them and like really bond with them, because they were all little. They were 9 or 10, 8, 6, and 4. Like, they were all really little, and they were all like my second cousins or second half cousins or whatever. But my grandma's side of the family, I was really close to them because my grandma talked to her sisters all the time, so I talked to them on the phone all the time. And this was when the internet was just coming out, and my aunt was big on the internet too, so my grandma and my aunt were constantly like emailing each other and IMing each other. So I got to actually talk to them a lot for them living across the country. So I spent a lot of time with them, and then I was getting ready to leave, and then I find out like right before I leave that this guy, actually the one who I had been talking to, so we can call him Chris. We can call him Chris because that was his real name. He didn't go by Chris, but that was his real name. So I find out that Chris actually has a fiance, whereas we've been hanging out and like fucking this whole time I'm down in Florida. And then I find out right before I leave that he had a fiance and that they were on the outs, which that should have been the first fucking red flag. All right, first red flag. But then I'm like, oh, you know, they're breaking up. It's whatever. I'm 19. I don't fucking understand life. So me and him keep talking, and me and my grandma decide to leave and go back home. So we come back home to Missouri. Well, I'm sorry, we come back home to Kentucky because my grandma, like I said, was living in Kentucky. So we get to Kentucky, and my car's there, so I take my car and I go back to Missouri. And in the time it takes me to get from Kentucky back to Missouri, I made the life decision that I was going to move down to Florida and be with this guy. So I talked to my aunt, and I'm like, Aunt Kay, I'll say Aunt Kay. Aunt Kay can, I love him. I want to be with him. I love Chris so much. I want to be with him. Can I come and stay with you guys so that I can be with him? And my aunt's like, well, you'll have to stay in the room with your cousin, but, if that's what you want, I don't care. So I get all my things together. I go on a farewell tour. I say goodbye to everybody. And this was in the beginning of 2009. I don't remember exactly what month. If I go back and look at Facebook, I'll be able to tell you for sure. But, I'm not going to do that right now just because it'll interrupt my train of thought. And that's very important here. So this is in the early spring of 2009. My sister is still a senior in high school. She hasn't graduated yet, and that is important to remember, that my sister is still not graduated yet. So my mom was like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you really sure you want to move down there? I was like, yeah, Mom, I'm already graduated. I dropped out of school. I'm not, I have no obligations. I'm not working. I can move down there. My mom's like, if that's really what you want to do, my mom was really big on, if that's what you want to do, you go ahead and you try it and you see what happens. So, pack up everything I own, and at this point, I had a little green Escort. I think it was a two-door Escort, yeah. So I have a two-door Escort that I get everything I own into, and drive to Kentucky, spend some time with my grandparents. And then I drive, and it's almost like a straight shot from Kentucky down to Florida. It's one highway most of the way. So I drive down to Florida. Everything's fine. I get down there. I unpack. I set myself up at my aunt's house. And I had never been to where this guy lived. This guy Chris I was talking to. I had never been to where he actually lived. He was staying with one of his friends. They were sharing an apartment. And that was all cool or whatever, totally normal. So I started hanging out over at his friend's house a lot more. And then I find out that his ex-fiance lives about a block away from my cousin and his wife and their daughter. So we start hanging out over at my cousin's house a lot. And Chris comes over and he hangs out with me over there. And then we go together over to his friend's house. And we hang out at his friend's house a lot. Unbeknownst to me, that the whole time we're over at his friend's house, he's sneaking off to his ex-fiance's house to sleep with her. Awesome. Love that. So, having good times in Florida. It's great. So many things happen where I should have been like, this is fucking dumb. I get a job at Home Depot. He doesn't want me to work with any guys. I'm like, it's fucking Home Depot, homie. That's the environment. He doesn't let me have friends. He, hates it that I make friends with people that I work with. I'm like, well, you're going to have to get over that one because there's nothing we can really do about that. I'm a pretty extroverted person here. He starts buying my clothes and, telling me what I'm going to wear. Just the little things that now I'm like, no, go away. But I'm 19. I don't care. It's whatever. He's sleeping with his ex-fiance behind my back. Whatever. So I start staying over at his apartment more with him and his friend. And that's not a big deal. I don't really care. But then I start staying over during the day while he's at work. If I don't have to work, I hang out at the apartment. And then it's like I don't have very much money. So I'm just kind of hanging out there eating whatever food's over there. And he gets mad at me. He's like, don't eat my food. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. thought we were dating, but I guess not. He wants me to be there when he's not there, so he knows where I'm at. But he doesn't want me to eat the food. He doesn't want me to touch anything. So it starts getting to where I notice that he is getting home from work earlier and things are going wrong. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, oh, nothing. You don't need to worry about it. It's not a big deal. So he's home more during the day, and I'm home because I'm not working every single day. And I notice that he's texting somebody else, not his ex-fiance. So, I find out later that he's sleeping with my cousin's wife behind both of our backs also. Now, my cousin's wife, and I really hope she hears this, because I don't think anyone's told her, is a fucking piece of shit. My cousin's wife cheated on my cousin with every person he was friends with, and then decided to sleep with the next door neighbor, left my cousin for the next door neighbor, and then had a baby with the next door neighbor. You're a piece of trash, P. I'm not going to say your whole name. You're a piece of trash, and I really hope you hear this, because you have this weird urge to, want me to like you when you have no connection to me. Yes, you gave birth to my cousin. That doesn't mean I have to fucking talk to you. You're trash. My cousin was going through problems, and instead of dealing with those problems and helping him and figuring it out and helping him work through what was going on, you just slept with everybody. So this is just me telling you, P, that you're a piece of trash. I know you like to stalk my shit. I'm pretty sure you listen to this, so I really hope you hear this. And if your kid hears it, I'm really sorry, but she needs to know the truth. She's an adult and a mom now, too. You should probably tell her what you did to her dad and quit brainwashing her into thinking that her dad is a piece of shit, because you're severely, severely ill and you really need to get help. Anyway, back to the story. Yeah, find out that he's sleeping with my cousin's wife behind our backs. And then he one day takes my phone and tells me that I need to keep his phone all day, and his phone is blowing up with my cousin's wife sending him text messages and his ex-fiance sending him text messages, and, just being shitty, being gross. So I get tired of this pretty quick, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't, think whether or not you're with her or with me or whatever. So I decide, just the same as I decided to move there, I decided to move home. Excuse me. So I pack all my stuff up and I drive back home. And my sister, I found out that my sister was pregnant around this time. And this was in September. I remember this because I came home for my birthday. And I flew home for my birthday, found out my sister was pregnant, flew back to Florida, and then in that time decided to come back home for good. Because when my sister was pregnant and I wanted to be there for the baby, and they had not told me really when I was down there, because I don't think they wanted me to be upset that I was missing out on it. So we really embraced it once I got back home, and I was only home for 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe not even that. Before I started talking to Chris again, and I was like, I miss you, I love you, and he's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that, I was such an idiot, blah, blah, blah. So he convinces me to move back down to Florida. Now, while I'm on my way to Florida, this should have been a sign from the universe. I'm on my way down there, and my timing belt on my car snaps in the middle of Tennessee. So much in the middle of Tennessee, in the middle of nowhere, that I had to call 911 to have a state trooper come out to tell me where I was so that the tow truck could come and get me and take me to an auto body shop. Or a mechanic shop. So this tow truck takes me to this, it's literally a barn in the middle of a field surrounded by broken down cars. And everyone there speaks Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. I speak enough to, order drinks and find a bathroom and, find someone's lost dog who's on fire. But I cannot have a conversation with someone in Spanish. So my grandpa, though, who was still alive at the time and also lived in Florida, my grandpa is Puerto Rican. So I call my grandpa and I'm like, Grandpa, I need your help. I cannot talk to these guys. They do not understand me and I don't understand them. Can you please get on the phone with them and tell them that I just need them to fix my car as fast as possible and get me out of here so that I can go to Florida? So my grandpa gets on and, speaks Spanish to these guys and explains this and pays over the phone also because I couldn't afford it. So my grandpa pays for it. And one of the guys, and they were actually Mexican. This isn't meant any type of way. They were actually Mexican. My grandpa's like, they're Mexican, just so you know. I'm like, okay. Okay, Grandpa, thanks. So one of the Mexican guys takes me to a hotel, and I had to stay at motel. I had to stay at a motel overnight by myself, no vehicle. And then the next morning, two of the Mexican guys, one of them drives my car, one of them drives another truck and brings my car to me. And I'm like, thank you, gracias, thank you, gracias, muchas gracias. Like, I'm just like so happy because my car's fixed. So I get back in the car and I trot my way down to Florida. And I get there and dude's still living, Chris is still staying in the same apartment with dude that he was living with, but it's like getting progressively worse. So I'm there one day, and he's at work, and I'm at home, and I don't have a job at this point because I had to quit Home Depot, obviously, when I moved back to Missouri. And so I'm just sitting at home. I have no money, and I'm starving. So I did have enough gas in my car to get to McDonald's. So I go into his closet, and he's got like a big jar of change. So I take a bunch of quarters, I go to McDonald's, and I remember this day because I used to get it all the time. If I could find change, if I could get $3, I could get a McChicken and a McDouble. And so I got a McChicken and a McDouble. I remember I got them. And so then I do that for 2 or 3 weeks where I hang out at his house while he's at work. Well, I think he's at work. Mind you, he was not at work. He was in bars getting shit-faced. Because while I was looking for that change, I started finding bottles. I would find a handle of empty vodka, a handle of empty gin, another handle of empty vodka, all on the floor of his closet, covered up with clothes. But I didn't think anything of it because he was a guy in his 20s, and so I was like, oh, they're just drinking, whatever. Well, then one day he comes home and he's shit-faced. And he starts screaming at me. And he's like, why are you taking all that money? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even have any money. He was talking about the change. Apparently the change that I had been taking money out of wasn't his. It was the roommate. And I didn't know that because it was in his closet. So, dude kicks us out of his apartment because I was stealing his change. Which, later I find out that he actually kicked us out because Chris hadn't paid rent in like 2 months because he had been drinking his paychecks away. And then he got fired because he showed up to work drunk one day because he was a project manager for a roofing company. So he showed up drunk one day to work and they fired him. So he had been lying to me and had been sitting at bars all day drinking when he was supposed to be at work. So we get kicked out. And we can't stay at my aunt's house because my aunt, like I said, is just dirt poor. She can't even afford to help me, let alone me and my crappy boyfriend. So we go to his mom's. And I forgot to mention that while I was back in Missouri, that Chris got a DUI. Because he passed out drunk in his car in a parking lot with the keys in the ignition and the engine running. So he got a DUI, and he spent 1 night in jail. And I didn't find this out until we got kicked out of the apartment because we got pulled over. And they're like, you're not supposed to be driving. You just got a DUI. And I couldn't drive because he had a stick shift turbocharged Jetta, and I couldn't drive a stick shift. So we get to his mom's. Unbeknownst to me that his mother and his stepfather are both fucking raging opiate addicts. And I had just gotten over my opiate addiction. because I decided to use while I was in college. And so it was severely triggering for me to be in a house full of people on opiates. Not to mention that homeboy, Chris, kept telling everybody that to stop drinking, he could take Xanax. So he would take Xanax, and then behind our backs, he would be drinking. So he'd be on Xanax, shit-faced. So him and his mom would fight, and they would scream at me because I'm just a freeloading slut. That's what she would call me, a freeloading slut all the time. Because she loved his ex-fiance. She would make sure she told me every day how I wasn't as good as her, how she was so much better than me, how he should have never left her for me, how I'm this dumb little slut that ruined his life. And I'm like, ma'am, your son is a raging alcoholic who got himself fired from a job, got a DUI, got pulled over, and got kicked out of his house. So, like, pretty sure I'm not the problem here. Anyway, so then we get kicked out of his mom's house because him and his mom can't stop fighting, and his mom is a recovering alcoholic, and she can't be around the drinking, and blah, blah, blah. So then we go to Tampa, to his dad's, and we stay with his dad for a week and a half. And his dad is also a recovering alcoholic. So he can't drink around his dad, and he's making a big deal about it. Oh, I can't drink. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't drink. So then he and I get kicked out of his dad's house. So then we're living in his Jetta because my car was back at my aunt's house. We just left it there. And so we were living in his Jetta. So finally, after a week and a half of living in a car, and this is all very vague because I blocked out a lot of this because it was just so bad and traumatic. But somehow, the next part did not get blocked out. I see this in such clear... It's like the most HD, this memory. So, after getting kicked out and living in a car, his friend lets us move back in with him in a different apartment in the same complex. So, we move back in. The first night we're there, we're staying on a blow-up mattress. Chris drinks so much that in bed, he pees all over the bed. All over me, all over my clothes, all over our bedding, all over everything. And he's not working, and neither am I, so we have no money at this point. So I didn't even have enough money to wash the sheets and wash my clothes. So, like, my favorite outfit that I ever owned at that point in time, ruined because he pissed all over the bed and all over me. So, our lives are basically, we wake up, he goes out, pretends to look for a job while getting actively drunk all day while his friend is out working, and I'm at home. And his friend had a girlfriend who had a son, so every once in a while they would ask me to babysit, and I would go and babysit, so that was like a couple of dollars that we would get, and he would take it. He would take that money from me, and he would go and drink it. So that was when I applied for food stamps. And I got approved, of course, because I wasn't working, and I was basically homeless. So we get my food stamps, and I start buying groceries with it, and immediately he's mad at all the groceries I bought. He starts throwing things at my head, telling me I'm a fucking crazy bitch. How could I buy these things? This is some shit that the northern people eat. Like, literally says things like that. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm from the Midwest. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. So, gets mad at me because we don't have money to do laundry. Gets mad at me because we don't have money for cigarettes. Is mad that I smoke. His mom smoked too, so his mom would get me weed, and he would get mad at me for getting weed from his mom. Don't know what to tell you, dude. I wanted to kill myself, so think that that's pretty much the only thing keeping me alive at that point. So he's, most of the days shit-faced and also on 2 or 3 Xanax. So he doesn't remember what he's doing. So he would take his gun out, and he would, put it around in the chamber and just sit there and hold it at me. And be like, I could just shoot you right now and nobody would care. I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, I could just shoot you. I'm like, awesome. That's great. So that goes on for a couple weeks where he just keeps threatening to shoot me. And he would fall asleep with a loaded gun under the pillow facing my head. And so he finally gets a job. And he goes to work in Tampa, which where we were staying, we were in Lakeland. It was about an hour and a half away from Tampa, if I can remember correctly. And so he goes to work in Tampa, and I'm home alone, and it's like really hot in the apartment. And this is one of the weirdest stories ever. It's really hot in the apartment. I can't handle it. So I go to open a window, and I had my hand on the window, the glass, and I accidentally shoved my arm through the window. So I've got blood running down my arm. I have pieces of glass stuck in my arm, and it's really close to the vein. So I had to call 911. Paramedics show up. They bandage me up. I drive myself to the hospital because I don't want to pay for the ambulance. Get there, get stitches for the first time in my entire life. All alone. I'm by myself completely in a random hospital in Lakeland in Florida by myself, 19 years old. So it's horrible. I get stitches, get patched up. I don't have to take any medicine or anything. I think they gave me a tetanus shot just because it was an old window. And I go to drive home, and I run out of gas. I have to call my cousin to bring me gas because, mind you, my cousin, his wife, their kid, and my aunt and uncle and their kids are all down there. But they have no idea how bad it is because I don't want to tell them because I'm literally, like, holding on to hope that somehow something's going to get better and nobody will know how bad it is because I don't want to look stupid for wasting all this time and moving down here and changing my whole life, and this dude ends up being a complete and total psycho. So my cousin comes and brings me gas, gets me enough gas so I can get back to the apartment. I get back there, go on with life because I got a bandaged up, stitched arm. My poor mom's having a nervous breakdown from Missouri because she can't do anything to help me, and I won't tell her how bad it is. So then, one night, after dude comes back from his job in Tampa, he gets completely blackout drunk and takes a couple Xanax. And he's so drunk that our roommate is trying to get him to calm down, and he won't calm down. And he's waving the gun around and screaming and telling us he's going to kill us and kill himself and all these other things. And dude's like, I can't do this anymore. You need to leave. Well, in the time we had been at that apartment with him, I had made friends with these people who were either across the hall and below us or just across the hall. I can't remember exactly. This girl named Nikki. And I'm still friends with, that is her real name, I'm still friends with her to this day. I love you, Nikki. You saved my life. I'm sitting on the sidewalk with everything I own, just crying. And Nikki's like, what's going on? And so Nikki brings me in, and she's like, you guys can stay with us for a little bit if you need to. So we move all of our stuff into Nikki's apartment with her and her son and her son's dad. I don't think they were even engaged or anything. So, and I know why she did this. She was trying to get the two of us to be allies against this really horrible thing that was about to happen to us. Because her son's dad was also an alcoholic and was very violent and loud and would scream and do all this crazy shit the same way that Chris would. So it's us two, a toddler, and these two huge guys. Because the two of us are both tiny. Like, me and Nikki were both 5 foot, 100-some pounds. And both of these dudes are 6 foot 2 something, So me and Nikki try our best to, like, make it a little happy family. We make dinners, and we keep the house clean. We hang out with her son. I'm not going to say her son's name just because he's still a minor. And I loved them. I loved her and her son so much. They literally saved my life. But while we're staying at their apartment, Chris convinces me to give him this ring that my mom had given me for my 18th birthday. And it was like a white golden diamond. It was beautiful. It's one of my favorite things. So he takes it and he pawns it. He tells me he's going to give me this money and I'll save it, and then I'll just get the ring back. I don't understand what this means. Of course, he gives me this money and steals it back from me while I'm sleeping, and then goes and buys alcohol. So he goes and buys alcohol, comes home one day, and he's shit-faced again. He's got the gun in one hand, and he's got a screwdriver in another. And he comes at me, and he's like, you stupid bitch. And I was like, I don't know what I did this time, because I'm breathing. And he's like, you stupid bitch. So he comes up to me and he puts the gun on one side of my head and he takes the screwdriver and he's got the screwdriver at my neck like you would like in an old Western movie, He's telling me he's going to kill me and I'm like, why? Of course, I'm screaming and crying, and I'm like, why? What is wrong? What is going on? He's like, you cheated on me. And I was like, I didn't cheat on you. About 6 months before this, he and I gotten into a fight, and I went to one of the bars where he and I hung out. I was 19, I wasn't supposed to be in there, but they let me, they didn't care. And while I was in this bar, I met this minor league baseball player, and he and I started talking or whatever, and he starts making out with me. And then he takes me back to his hotel room and rapes me. And I won't go into the details of it, just because we've already heard one rape. We don't need to hear a second one. So after that happened, I raced back to the apartment where me and Chris were staying at the time, and I called the police, and the police get there, and as the police officer gets out of her car to start questioning me and asking me what happened, he's like, tell her how you're a fucking slut. Tell her how you cheated on me. Tell her how you just let anybody go inside of you. Tell her how you're a fucking whore. Just starts screaming at me as this police officer. She's trying to take my statement so that we can find out who this guy is and get this all taken care of. And I stop and I look at her and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, no, we can go somewhere where he's not around and I can take your statement. And I'm like, no, he's going to hurt me. She's like, no, he won't. It's fine. He's just upset. This is how they get. I'm like, no, he's going to hurt me. So I finally tell the cop I don't want to file charges. I don't want to file a police report. I don't want to do any of that. So she leaves. Fast forward 6 months, and now dude is using it against me that he hurt me, and I left and was talking to this guy, and this guy ended up raping me. He was trying to use that against me and say that I cheated on him now. So finally, Nikki gets tired of it, and she's like, you gotta fucking go. You gotta leave. You gotta get the fuck out of my apartment. You can't be doing this shit around my kid. So that was my final straw. It had taken a while for me to get to that, but that was my final straw, was that I was being kicked out of my friend's house, that I had now nowhere else. I had nowhere else to go. I was kicked out, and I was defeated, so I finally gave in and called my mom, and I was like, Mom, this is what happened. I told her everything except for the rape. My mom listens to this. She will hear about me getting raped in Florida. I'm sorry, Mom. I love you. It's just not something we talk about. But I told her, what had happened. I told her how I was like, this is bad, Mom. I have to come home. She's like, okay. And then I had to tell her about how the special ring she had gotten me for my 18th birthday was in a pawn shop. And how I had no money. He had taken everything, including all the birthday money everybody had sent me, the Christmas money my grandpa had sent me early, because this was right before Christmas. So she says, all right, let me call your grandparents. So my mom calls both sets of my grandparents, and I had never used like Western Union or MoneyGrams or any of those things. So my one grandpa sends me money to get my mom's ring out of the pawn shop. The other grandparents send me money so that I have gas to get back home. And like I had said in a TikTok video, I still had my food stamps. So I had about $60 left on my food stamps. So I went to a Publix, got a whole bunch of food, filled up my tank, got everything I owned, and took him. He got in my car because he had already gone through 2 AA courses, like 2 different AAs and NA. He had been to detox and then tried to go to rehab, but they wouldn't let him into rehab because he was still too drunk. Like, literally, his BAC at the time was like a 1. Like, it wasn't even below a 1. It was so ridiculous. They were like, you shouldn't be alive. So I take him, put him in my car, and I'm like, we're going to go somewhere. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And he's like, okay, because he's drunk. So this is probably the least humane thing I've ever done in my life. I literally drive up to a hospital, and I'm like, okay, you go inside, and I'll be in there in a few minutes. And pretty much kick him out of my car and drive away. That was the last time I ever saw him. I dropped him off at that hospital, got into my car. Well, I was in my car and literally got on the highway and drove away. I had said goodbye to my aunt already and explained to her and my cousins what all had happened. But I didn't tell my cousin any of the details. I still haven't to this day talked to my cousin about how his wife cheated on him with my ex-boyfriend. He doesn't know how he abused me. He doesn't know any of those things. He doesn't listen to podcasts, so I'm sure he won't hear this. But it would have hurt him too much to know that all of these things were happening to somebody he loved so much and cared about so much, and he didn't do anything to stop it. Mostly because he was also drunk at the time. He had a really bad drinking problem. And that was how they became friends. Was through drinking. That was how he had all of his friends. So I didn't want to add insult to injury and like make him feel like it was his fault or make him feel responsible for anything. So I just really never talked to him about it. He and I are still close, but obviously not as close as we were because of everything that happened. But so yeah, I dropped the loser off at the hospital and drove away and came back home. And then it was Christmas, and then 4 days after Christmas, my niece was born. And then the night my niece was born, I started talking to my daughter's dad, and we were together for about 3 years, and I had my daughter. So I do like to say, like, if I hadn't gone to Florida, I probably wouldn't have my daughter. But, you know, and Chris got mega karma, guys. He got the biggest karma. He went into liver failure and basically lived in a hospital for 3 or 4 years. He's still alive. As far as I know, it's been about a year or so since I've checked to see if he's alive or not. Only reason I even checked was because his mom died a little while ago, and my aunt let me know, weirdly enough. But, yeah, so he got karma, guys. He does not have a functioning liver anymore. About 2 years after I left, he reached out to me and was very apologetic and, you know, very remorseful and just trying to be sorry. And I kind of let him have it and was like, you ruined me. I still am not okay. Even now, I'm still not okay. Like, he really fucked with my self-worth, with my confidence, with my sense of self, because he was really good at telling me that things that I would say weren't true, or that I was lying, or I was making it up. And he liked, everything was always, he was better than me, so everything was a competition, and I hate that because I still carry that with me. Like, everything's a competition to me. But that's the whole Florida story, guys. It's not fun. It was one of the worst years of my life. The year 2009, aside from my niece being born, probably one of the worst years of my life. There's a lot of things I didn't include just because they're tiny little details. I could always go back and do a second episode where I tell you guys all the stupid, tiny little things, like taking me to a concert and cheating on me in the parking lot with some girl, or taking me to another concert and hooking up with some other girl in the bathroom. Like, you know, one night we were over at his friend's house and he snuck his ex-fiancée into the house and fucked her in the bathroom while I was outside on the front porch. The night he switched our phones, he went through my phone and deleted everybody's phone numbers. Like, I mean, you know, just hateful, ignorant, evil things. And I'm grateful every single fucking day that I am with somebody who's the opposite of every one of these people who hurt me so badly. But, yeah. Don't date people named Chris, guys. That's about what I got from all of this. And also, you know, do snoop. Be a little bit snoopy with things. Like, if something doesn't seem right, look into it. Don't let people just say things and go with it. Like, if someone says, oh, this is what I want to do. Okay, well, ask why. just don't be dumb. Don't do the things that I did. Don't move across the country for a guy who you don't know anything about. And, like, if your family's going to support you in that kind of decision, question them. Be like, why are you letting me do this? Like, but that's just my life lesson episode, guys. I know a lot of people had asked me questions about it and wanted to know more of the details. I don't like talking about it. It makes me look stupid that I let these things happen to me. But I learned a lot from it. And, like, I try my hardest to not let people treat me the way that he treated me. And try my best to not let anything like this happen to my kid. But, yeah, if there's anything anybody else wants to ask, I know it was kind of disjointed and, like, all over the place, but that's just because that's the way this was. It was a really insane time in my life, so a lot of it kind of gets conjumbled up. But I hope you guys have a great week. I'm sorry this one was so heavy, but that's just the way it was. And next week I'll try to do something a lot more upbeat and funny and interesting. So I love you guys. You have a good week, and please take care of yourselves. Love you. Thank you. Bye.
You dumb fucking bitch.
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 You bitch! The mega bitch!
Heinous bitch is the fucking bitch.
Bitch?
You're a bitch.
The bitch. If you've ever thought about making your own podcast, I highly recommend using Buzzsprout. You can find a link in the show notes. And once you're there, they kind of explain everything for you. And it's really pretty cheap, honestly. They give you all kinds of tips and tools on how to increase listeners, how to promote your show, and on monetization. If you have any other questions, they are super responsive. They get back to you within a day, if not like an hour. I use Buzzsprout, and it gives me the ability to host my podcast on basically every single podcast hosting site and app. It's great. I love them. So I'm going to continue to use them. And if you are interested, you should definitely look into them. Like I said, there's a link in the show notes.